You Booked It, Episode 13. Hey, entertainers and performers of the world. I'm your host, Dane Reese, and welcome to You Booked It, where I chat with inspiring entertainers 7 days a week. By digging into their journey, we're going to discover everything you need to do to be a successful entertainer. You know, because training usually skips that part about how to actually make your skills work for you in the real world. Fellow entertainers, my drive here at You Booked It is to share the inspiring and incredible journeys of successful entertainers. We are here to support your journey. So go to youbookeditpodcast.com and join the You Booked It email community where we dig deep into truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help you book that next audition, submission, or gig. If you enjoy this free podcast, please show your support and search for You Booked It on Apple Podcast or your favorite podcast app where you can subscribe so you don't miss an episode, leave a rating and review. And to show our appreciation for your, fingers crossed, 5-star rating and review, I will give you a shout out on an upcoming episode. And now, let's do this. All right, I am excited to introduce my guest today, Jason Kalish. Are you ready for this, Jason?
I am absolutely ready. Let's do it.
Brilliant. Jason has been teaching the art of American tap dance for almost 30 years. He's also created a classy, high-energy tap dance act called Style and Grace with tap dance partner Sarah Scolo that is perfect for corporate events and private parties. His credits include dancing for Postmodern Jukebox, Rock in Rio Las Vegas, Rose Rabbit Lie, Larry King, Chris Bodie, Snoop Dogg, Busta Rhymes, Jamie Foxx, Seinfeld's Jason Alexander, Harry Connick Jr., Leanne Rimes, The Eagles, Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, Huey Lewis and the News, Jack Black, Stacy Keach, Theodore Bickel, Sandra Santiago, Gregory Hines, Tony Coppola, Rhythm Ensemble, Dean Perry's Tap Dogs, 42nd Street, Crazy for You, Evita, The King and I, Camelot, The Fiddler on the Roof, Cinderella, The Nutcracker, and Giselle. Jason has also been an adjunct professor of tap dance at Kennesaw State University and has also been with Hollywood Connections since its inception. But above all, he is grateful for his opportunity to perpetuate the art of American tap dance nationwide. Jason, that is a quick intro of who you are and what you've done, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, fill in the gaps, who you are, where you're from, where you're currently calling home, and a little bit more about what you do as a professional in the entertainment industry.
Well, okay, Dan. Well, that is quite a tall order, but I will try to fill that order. First off, I'm located here with my wife Laura in Las Vegas, and we have a newborn baby. His name is Larson.
Congratulations.
And thank you very much. And we're excited. I'm already working on his feet to do little tap steps, as sickening as that may be. I can't help it. So, so sue me. But anyway, so my career is interesting because it's kind of a hybrid, and it's a hybrid into something that I didn't think that I would be doing. Truth be told, when I was in high school, I went to a magnet school for the performing arts, but that was mostly because I didn't want to go to my local high school, and I wanted something better, and I found a way to get out of that school system by going to a county school instead of a city school. And so I went to a high school called Pebblebrook High School, which a lot of fairly successful entertainers have attended and gone on to have other careers in Broadway and film and some pop stars and that sort of thing. So a little school tucked away in the country. But when I was doing that, it was just to kind of pass the time in high school to make life more fun and interesting than just a regular high school. I never thought that I would be doing this professionally, even though I had been professional as a younger man. I turned professional when I was 11, doing The King and I, and started teaching tap when I was 12, and then did 42nd Street when I was just 16. But it was just something that was like a hobby. It was like a passionate hobby. And I thought, gee, I think I'm pretty good at this. It would be nice to get paid, as like a part-time summer job kind of thing to pay for my car so I could, date girls or whatever.
Right.
But I never thought you could make a living at it because everybody was like, you can't make a living in show business. There's no money in that. That's something you just do like in addition to your real job. You wait tables or you go to college and you have a desk job. And then on the weekend, you do some regional theater or something like that.
Right.
I just thought there's no way that you can have enough money consistently to earn your living this way. So why even try? So I was going to be an engineer. I was like, I'm going to do math. I'm going to develop the next jet fighter for Lockheed Martin, and that sort of thing. Well, long story short, at Kennesaw State, I was in my second semester, and I was doing calculus two, and we were studying derivatives. And while I was doing derivatives, or should have been learning what derivatives are, I was daydreaming and going, "Gosh, I wonder what I could do with my tap dancing. I wonder if I could, if I should lend value, if I could lend value to the American stage in any capacity." And then I was thinking about myself being older, like in my 50s or 60s, looking back on my life and not having that question answered on, can I do something with my tap dancing? And that kind of really, really scared me more than anything, more than flunking out of college or not having money or anything else, was the not knowing, the having a big blank on that question and never knowing if I could succeed or fail with tap dance. So at that time, I was told by a man named Marcus Alford, a well-known jazz teacher out of Chicago and then Atlanta, retired now, but classic jazz artist. He had heard of a show called Hot Shoe Shuffle out of Australia. I don't think he knew the Dean Perry, but he knew of Hot Shoe Shuffle, and that whoever was involved with that, or someone that was involved in that, had some new show that was coming to America that hired tap dancers. And so I was like, wow, it's a show that could use some tap dance talent. I want to know all about it. So I jumped on board and tried to find out about this show. And one thing led to another, and I kept calling the production agency in New York City and saying, "Do you guys have any auditions?" They said, "No, we're not looking for anybody." I called them dozens of times, and I got on their nerves. They're like, "Please stop calling us. We don't have any auditions. We're not hiring anybody. Thanks, but no thanks, and goodbye." And I sent them my stuff, and I'm sure they threw it in the garbage. Anyway, I said, "I'm just got to go. I'm going to go to New York." And my friend, a woman named Beth Moore, really talented ballet dancer, we said, let's just go to New York City. And we bought tickets, really cheap tickets to New York. And I called on Sunday, I called up the agency again, said, "Hey, I'm coming to New York City." Like, "We don't care." And I said, "Bo, but they said, "Well, when are you here for?" I said, "Monday through Wednesday." They said, "Well, you're in good luck because we have an open audition on Tuesday." And so it just so happened that the stars aligned, and then I got a call back and blah, blah, blah. And then that's how I wound up touring with Tap Dogs at the age of, well, 19, almost 20.
That's fantastic. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next section here. And look, I am a sucker for a good quote. What's your favorite quote that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I'm glad you asked this. So when I teach kids, sometimes I teach them the history of tap dance, and I talk to them about Bill Bojangles Robinson. And without his career and his life, most of us wouldn't know what tap shoes are. In fact, I'm not even sure they would have been invented as far as putting metal plates on the shoes. But Bill Robinson said in 1949, in his last televised appearance before he died, says to a young man who's 17, I can't think of the tap dancer's name right now, but you can see this footage on YouTube. Just type in Bill Bojangles Robinson's last televised appearance. And he says to the kid, I may get it wrong a word or two, but he basically says this. So the kid is just freaked out and told that Bill Robinson is in the audience. And Bill Robinson at that time was as famous as like Michael Jackson, that big of a megastar. And he was tops. He was the man. And so this kid, of course, is freaking out. He's 17, and his idol, the superstar of tap, is there to see him dance, or he's just seen him dance. Is coming up on stage to talk to him, says the announcer. And so he's like shaking in his shoes. And Bill Robinson gets up there and goes, "That's okay," because the kid tries to talk and his mouth's falling off. He goes, "That's okay. You don't have to talk. I just want to tell you that you're great. And I just want to tell you one thing." And this is very profound given the times that we're in, that Bill Robinson says this all the way back in 1949. He says to the kid, "Manners can take you where money can't take you, no matter what color you are in America. Manners can take you where money can't take you, no matter what color you are in America." And this is, obviously African-American man, who had lots of money and fame, and he had it all, but he didn't say that fame and fortune can take you. He really stressed manners to this young kid that had all the talent in the world. And that just moves me. It inspires me. It inspires me as an American, and it inspires me as a tap dancer, and it inspires me as a gentleman and to be a better person. So that's why I love that quote.
I love that. You're right. It is so pertinent to our times right now. And like you said, it was so long ago when he
Yeah,
said that.
yeah,
But I guess how have you implemented that quote into your professional career?
yeah. So often it's not the big things that get you a job sometimes. A lot of times, because you can do a gig. Your talent can get you a job, but will it get you a second job? Will it get you a third job? Will it get you that second job again? Will you be rehired for an additional contract? Will you be, recalled back for this particular production company or agency? And that's where manners really, really come to play. Let me give you a small example of this recently, a recent example. So I was working at Rose Rabbit Lie, subbing out for the tap dancer, the regular on-call tap dancer. And it blew my mind because people were like, "Man, this upper level manager or somebody in charge of operations said to me, this is why I like you. This is why you're so great. I mean, you cleaned up your space, your little dressing area. You pushed in your chair, you threw away all your garbage. You kind of organized it. You made it neat. You left it better than you found it, and that's true. And I do that because that's just something in my manners that leave it better than you found it.
For
Whatever it is,
sure.
leave it better than you found it. If you used something, did you leave it better than you found it, or did you leave it worse than you found it?
For
And that's
sure.
that's a part of a work ethic, and part of wanting to be an avid professional. And again, going back to Bill Robinson's quote, again, being well spoken, being polite to people, being amicable, being a gentleman. This has a profound effect on people, whether they're looking at your talent or not, because they go, "This is a good person to be around. This person exudes goodness and tries to be good natured towards others. I want to be around that. That's a positive energy. If there's that positive energy, that's probably going to make our show better." See, so I really think that it just pays dividends, not just to the entertainer that might utilize this quote, but to the people that are surrounded by someone who's putting that out there. Who's putting out goodwill through good manners.
Absolutely. I like to say, be nice to everybody.
Hmm.
And I think your your quote about good manners is really goes hand in hand with the be nice to everyone. It's really just they're one and the same. They're an extension of
Yeah,
each other because
yeah,
by you leaving a place better than you found it, to think about, oh, right. So of course there are people that are hired to kind of clean up this space, to do that. There are people that are hired for that job. But if you
mhm,
can make their job a little bit easier when it really doesn't put you out at all,
no,
makes
no,
a massive difference. And that's what
no,
gets you called again and asked
right,
back because
right,
everyone wants to work with people that are fun and enjoyable to work with.
yes,
And when you get into
yes,
this industry, I've found that to find someone to technically do the job, to sing the song or dance the dance or whatever it might be, whatever the skill is, that's that's quite dime a dozen for the majority of roles and the majority of needs for any production or gig.
mhm,
But it comes down to who you are as a human being and a person that really has a big impact on whether or not you get asked back or get booked in the first place.
yeah, absolutely. And I think it also draws a line in the sand, so to speak, of a distinction between a very, very talented amateur and a professional. And someone that's an avid professional, there is more to their occupation and what they deliver when they go to work than simply their gift or their talent. Are they on time? In fact, are they early? Do they do all their presets? Do they look people in the eye when they talk to them? Do they say please and thank you? Do they just have it together? Did they do their homework? Did they rehearse? Are they prepared? On and on and on. Do they deliver in rehearsals and not just in shows? These other sort of ethical things as an entertainer that really, really separate someone that wants to be a professional from someone that is just a very talented amateur. Because again, are there people that can tap dance better than me? Of course. Are there people that can sing better than you? Probably, but are they going to deliver that gift and that skill set in a package of professionalism? And I think people have to recognize that there's a lot of power when you deliver yourself as a professional and what that entails. And that doesn't just stop at professional grade delivery of a talent or a skill set, but it's the whole thing. It's your demeanor and your timeliness and your preparation and your sincerity and your commitment to the cause, that you're not like, you know what, I just didn't feel like showing up today, so I didn't come in. That kind of thing. Because there's a lot of people that are really, really flaky and they keep wondering why they're not making it in this business.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. Well, let's move on to the next section now. So, Jason, you're an entertainer, I'm an entertainer, and I think you'd agree that the entertainment industry is one of the most subjective, brutally honest, personally emotional industries in existence. And you know as well as I that in order to create and have a successful career in this industry, like you're having now, it takes a lot of dedication and hard work. And while, of course, yes, there is an outrageous amount of fun and excitement being an entertainer, being on stage, there are also our fair share of obstacles and challenges and failures that we are going to experience. It's an inevitability. And we have to move forward through this if we want to continue being in this industry. So tell us, what is one key challenge, obstacle, or failure you've experienced in your career? And how did you come out better on the other side?
There's quite a few. There's quite a few failures, but failure is one of the best teachers. And listen, there's no business like show business, and if you're an entertainer, you know that for the good and the bad of that whole thing. But that being said, I think for me, at first, one of my biggest failures that affected an audience specifically, not just me and being hired with other people, was this difference between doing something really good and doing something for other people. And I didn't start to get what I would call genuine applause or clapped for or standing ovation or anything like that until I learned the difference, until I discovered that going out on a stage isn't just repeating what you did and what you tried to perfect in a studio when you practiced, but that it's something different, something extra special. And that extra special thing that I was not delivering on for a long time was I was not having an experience. I was simply doing a thing well. It was just repeating what I had practiced, using my muscles. I was performing, if you will, with my muscles. And in doing so, I wasn't really performing at all. I had no relationship, no rapport with my audience. So that started to change. The pivotal moment for me, the biggest pivotal moment, was I was doing a one-man show down in Mexico in the Yucatan in a city called Merida, Merida, which is kind of the arts capital of the Yucatan, if not all of Mexico, next to Mexico City. And they have some of the best artists from all over the world, all over South America, from Europe, from Spain, especially from uh, Cuba, coming over there. So insane levels of talent in so many art forms. And anyway, so the show that I did was sponsored by the local city government to pay me to do tap dancing and hip hop for an audience of about 600 people in this little city-run theater. And anyway, it was a two-part show, and I would do one number of tap, one number of hip hop, one number of tap, one number of hip hop, and then some students would come out and do part of a tap dance. Well, when it came to intermission, I was devastated because I didn't get one smattering of applause. Nothing, nada, zero, zeppo, nothing. I was totally bombing. And I was like, but I don't get it. Why am I bombing? I'm so clean. I have such cool rhythms. I'm strong. I practiced a lot for this. I've been dancing for years. Why isn't the applause automatic? They should be clapping for me. And that's when I turned that on its head and I said, they should be clapping for me? What are you telling me? They should be. Wait a second. Wait, I got it all wrong. They shouldn't be clapping for me. I should be inspiring them to clap. I turned it on myself
I
and
love
said,
that.
I have to give these people more than this is what I do with my body. Because they were seeing through it all. It was an audience of some artists, but deeply cultural people who love the arts and have passion and love sincerity and have deep love for their families. So my getting out there and flexing my muscles with my feet, I wasn't doing anything for them. They weren't buying it because it wasn't sincere. It wasn't genuine. It wasn't filled with soul. And so I got real vulnerable, turned inward, cried my eyes out for about 5 minutes, kind of got it together and said, next number when I go out, because this was mostly all improvisation. The whole show was just literally just creating, with the music in real time, both for hip hop freestyle and for tap dance improvisation. And so the next number I went out and said, I'm going to give them me, the vulnerable me, the real me. I'm not going to hide behind my talent, hide behind my years and thousands of hours of practice. I'm going to let them all the way on the inside and show them what it's like to be in love with the art of tap dance. And that's what I did. And then the applause wound up coming because they said, oh, this guy does mean it. He is sincere. And the
Oh,
applause came.
that's such a good story. And I think that is such a good moment of realization for you. But I think we can even expand that realization to anyone that's done a long running show, because it is hard if you're in a show for a year or more, and to show up every single night and really go there and give all of yourself to the material and give yourself to the audience. It's it's exhausting, to be
Yeah.
frank,
Yeah.
but it's also exhilarating at the same time. And I think there would not be a professional entertainer in the world that hasn't phoned in a performance or two, and you can really absolutely tell the difference when you are being honest with the work that you are giving.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, there's a huge distinction, and something that I teach my students also is, don't be right in your dancing or in your performing. Don't be good at doing what you've been asked to do. Be great. Even through mistakes, even through exhaustion, be great. Do you want to create something wonderful, or you don't? I mean, it's kind of, either those two things. When I go out on a stage, I want to create something wonderful because maybe it's the last time I'll ever dance. Maybe I die tomorrow. I don't know. I don't want to take this life for granted. So I feel like, the arts is a gift. It's a gift to be returned. And then it's a reciprocal thing that happens between this relationship between the entertainer and the audience. And there's an energy there. And you know it when you felt it from some of the best entertainers, that the world's ever known, from Sammy Davis Jr. to Gregory Hines, to Michael Jackson, to a Lady Gaga today. These people, they are great before they use their art form. And that ties into a quote from a tap master named Chuck Green, who said, tap dance, it starts with a personality and then you add the tap. And I think that's kind of true with all the arts. Give them you, give them the fullness of you. The art exacerbates that reality for the audience. Don't hide behind the art. The art is like a magnifying glass, to let all of your insides be enjoyed by others.
Absolutely. And I think we can even go so far to say that when it comes to casting and booking, that is a major part of why people get booked or booked consistently over other people. And because in the perfect world, in my opinion, when you show up for an audition and you can legitimately be considered for this, whatever it might be based on your skill set, the fact that you can do the thing that they need you to do, singing, dancing, whatever it is is given. It's already expected that you can do the thing technically.
Right, of course.
We don't
Yeah.
really care about that because you're here. You should be able to do it.
Right.
What else can you bring to this
Yeah. Yeah.
performance? And that's what gets you booked.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's a trap, right? Because so often, especially with not necessarily young amateurs, but anybody that's amateur, maybe is becoming professional or is wanting to become professional or kind of flirted with becoming professional, and they go to the audition, they go, "Oh, that person got hired because they're better than me." They just say that. They just think that person got hired and they're better than me. Well, are they better than you? Or are they doing something that you're not? Is it a totally different perspective? And I think often the trap, Dane, is people, I am experiencing this more and more. They're projecting their technique. In other words, they're using their skill, and that's all they're using. For example, it'd be like, when you hear about singers and you go, gosh, this person, they did all these runs, their pitch is perfect, their rhythm is great. but I'm just not feeling them. When they sing a lyric, they sing, the lyric of like how much I'm in love with you, the same as they, sing the lyric I went to the club. I mean, so it's not sentimental. It doesn't move anybody. You have to be feeling what you're doing, and you have to have a goal of inspiring people. And I think that in an audition, if you go there and instead of saying to yourself, I hope they like me, right, and resting your opportunity there, go out there instead, say, it's not about I hope they like me. When I leave here, they will know that I love to perform, and they will know that I'm in love with whatever art form I've been doing. And if you leave them with that, and that's the goal, that's going to be a very different experience than the person that's just doing the thing really well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, let's move on to the next section, to a time when you had what I like to call your spotlight moment. That one moment in time that you realized, yes, I am going to be an entertainer for a living. Or maybe it was, yes, this is what I need to be doing as an entertainer. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's kind of a two-pronged thing. So I did Tap Dogs for 2 years, and I thought, gosh, this is amazing. But that show, and it's a glorious show, but honestly has to be one of the most brutal things ever for the human body to endure, next to Stomp and maybe that Twyla Tharp show, Moving Out.
Yeah, I believe it.
Um, it broke your body night after night. I mean, here I was in my early 20s, right? And even just after a couple weeks of doing it, would wake up to go to the bathroom at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and would literally like almost be crawling to the toilet because your body, your muscles
Oh,
were so
wow.
destroyed and devastated, and the inflammation and the brutal. And it's nothing against Tap Dogs. There was no other way to do it. It was a show about blue collar construction workers in Australia who found the rhythm of their life basically in their machines, and wanted to explore what might happen with this construction fantasy come to life. That's my interpretation of it. I'm sure Dean Perry would say, "Well, that's not quite right, mate," but that's my interpretation of it. So, but anyway, so it was just brutal. So I was like, "Well, I only want to do this for 2 contracts, and maybe do some industrials because I wanted to be able to dance well into old age, and more importantly, I wanted to be able to walk." Um, because there were men in that show that during the course of the show had spinal surgery. There were others that in their early 30s had hip replacement surgeries. So these things were happening all the while I was in the middle of doing it. So I knew I wasn't that for me. I wasn't going to be able to last very long if this was the only thing that I wanted to do. The other major side of my career was teaching, and I taught for a little convention called Manhattan Dance Project, and that's where I met Kimberly Lyon Rhinelander, who's one of the owners, along with Bill Bowl, of Hollywood Connection. And she asked me to come on board with them when I was 25. And that's where I've been there ever since for 17 years, been their tap teacher. And I kind of fell in love. You see, my career is kind of this duality of teaching. And in teaching, it gives me inspiration to use the knowledge that I'm giving to my students to be a better entertainer. And then I entertain, and I get more inspiration and more knowledge and wisdom with that experience to then go back and give to my students. So for me, it was after, I'd say, probably the second season of Hollywood Connection, that I was like, I want to be in this business. I can make a living. Because I had just graduated 2 years after joining Hollywood Connection. I graduated with my business degree from Kennesaw State University, and again, didn't think that there'd be enough money to make a living, but there happened to be, with this dual career of teaching dance conventions, teaching a bit in the studio, and then entertaining. There was enough of an income to support a lifestyle that is decent and enjoyable and provides some sense of security. So I'm very grateful for that. I'm very thankful.
That's fantastic. And let's piggyback on that question and let's talk about your number one booked it moment. Walk us through that day, the audition and callbacks, if those happen to be part of it. What was going on in your life? And what about that moment makes it your favorite booked it moment?
Yeah, favorite booked it moment. This one's hard for me because I've never taken a booking for granted when I've done an audition. I've always been grateful and been thankful that I got the job and that sort of thing. But I do think if you want to call it being serendipitous, or just the timing, if you will, the synchronicity of my doing Tap Dogs was very special, in the fact that I made a very distinct goal before I even auditioned for that show. I was at the Fox Theater in Atlanta, because I grew up in Atlanta. And the Fox Theater is a very beautiful old theater, just one of the most beautiful theaters in the country, if not the world, in my opinion. And they had a small little advertisement about the upcoming summer tours the following year, like 11 months, maybe it was longer than that, maybe almost a year away. And little tiny blurbs said, Tap Dogs playing at this theater for this week, here to there. And I just remember I looked at that little advertisement of the upcoming theater schedule, and I pointed at it with my finger. And I said it out loud. I didn't keep it to myself. I literally pointed at it with my finger. And I said, I'm going to be in that show when it comes here. I'm going to be in that show when it comes here. That's what I said. And I was so determined to make that my destiny. And lo and behold, that happened. And, I think part of that persistence in show business, my buying the ticket, making the plans with my friend to go to New York, even though this casting agency had said no a million times. And then there just happened to be that audition. And then I booked the first round and got the call back and got that. And I went home, and because I was staying with my mom temporarily. And I got out of the car, and she came out of the front door. I barely just stepped out of the car. And she said, get back in the car. You got to go back to the airport. They want you back in New York.
What?
And so, so you don't even come in the house, because they want you there. And so that was very special for me, that whole thing. I was like, wow, okay, I'm going to get my crack at this. Now, what they wanted me for wasn't to be in the show, though. All they wanted me for was to train to be a swing / understudy, to train for 6 weeks, and then maybe in 1 to 2 years, come back and swing or understudy the show.
Wow.
And so when I was in the rehearsals, I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to go get my college degree. I'm going to move on in my career, or whatever other opportunities. I'm not going to wait around for you to want to hire me. So that increased my resolve and my determination, because there was somebody else who had already, quote unquote, gotten the job. Right. And I looked at that guy and I pointed at him like I did at that poster. And I said, I'm going to take your job, not in a mean-spirited way. Not saying that he couldn't also be in the show, but I was not going to be left out, at least not without a fight.
Outwork you.
Yeah, so I was gonna. So I went out of my way to just, again, preparation, determination, drive, ambition, passion in my dancing, pursuing the act of giving them what it was they wanted in spades. Superseding expectations, not just meeting the expectations. And I worked so hard, and it was, it made me a better dancer. But I was like, I'm not good enough to be in the show, because the talent was outrageous. A lot of people in the tap industry at the time knocked the show, said, oh, it's easy, it's this, it's that, it's not what I like, they had all kinds of criticism. But I'm going to tell you, real deal, amazingly trained Henry Latang tap dancers got in that show. And if it didn't challenge them rhythmically or technically, it pushed their endurance to new levels. So it was a very challenging show. But yeah, long story short, I just was determined to book this job. And then when the producer of that show, Nigel Triffett, took me aside and said, congratulations, mate, I've just made your life miserable for the next 2 or 3 years, and offered me the contract, I was beside myself. So it was really wonderful.
And it all paid off.
Yeah, because that led to the dance convention teaching. It was enough of a mark on my resume of climbing up into the upper echelons of being a successful tap dance professional, that gave me, I guess, the integrity, if you will, or the reputation of knowing something, that at least a little bit of what I'm talking about, So it validated that, and also having done 42nd Street. So I had significant current things on my resume to increase my value as a teacher and entertainer.
Fantastic. Great story. So let's talk about the present now. What projects are you working on now? What are you looking forward to? And obviously, we are amidst this global pandemic still. How do you see the entertainment industry moving forward in the next couple of years?
I mean, I think the best thing for entertainment is, even in dark times, people have a demand for entertainment, because that's their escape, right? If they don't do drugs or drink or whatever, entertainment is their escape. Entertainment is what lifts up, hearts and minds and spirits and that sort of thing. Next to church, I guess. So I think there's going to still be a demand for it, if not a greater demand. Now, is that going to change what happens in a theater for the time being? Maybe. Audiences wearing masks and entertainers. I don't think are going to really be able to pull it off too well. Uh, because we'll just be out of breath. But I mean, can you imagine singing in a mask? I mean, it might not sound so good. I don't know, but
Right.
I'll sound like Darth Vader maybe. But I think that it's going to be this interesting hybrid thing where the online and digital representation of the art is going to start being as prevalent as the live art. I think it's going to be this tandem kind of thing. And in situations where it's too dangerous, I can see, well, we're going to do a filming, and then we're going to simply release that in a theater or through streaming and that sort of thing. So I think there's still going to be a huge demand for it. I look at the rise of TikTok, for example, and all these silly videos. People are looking for escape. They're looking for distraction. They're looking for fun, and they're looking to be moved. And so I think there's going to be a great demand for that, albeit it's going to look a little bit different and become ever more digital, or at least digitally enhanced or digitally supported.
Great. I love that insight. So let's move on to one of my favorite sections in the interview, and I call it the Grease Lightning round.
Grease lightning. All right.
That's right. I'm going to ask you a handful of questions. I want you to answer them as quickly and concisely as possible, one after another.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Oh, okay, let's do it.
All right. First question. What was the one thing holding you back from committing to a career as an entertainer?
I just didn't think I could make it. There's no way there'd be enough money in that to, pay your rent.
Great. Second question. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
It has to come from a woman named Jenny King. Don't be on time, be early. Early is on time is late.
Perfect. Third question. What is something that is working for you now? Or if you'd like to go pre-COVID, what was working for you before our industry went on pause?
I think just reputation and showing your face and this hybridized thing of, hey, I'm here in person, but look, I have an online presence too. But not just an online presence, I have an in-person presence. I think this balancing act of in-person and online was helping to promote the career.
Great. Fourth question. What is the best resource, whether that is a book, a movie, a YouTube video, a podcast, a piece of technology that you found is helping your career right now?
Gosh, I think just keeping abreast of what is going on and what people were doing. You have to sort of contrast your own art with other people. It doesn't mean you try to replicate that, but you got to know what's going on. You can't live in a bubble.
Great. And the fifth question, if you had to start your career from scratch, but you still had all the knowledge and experience you've collected from your career in this industry, what would you do or not do? Would you do anything differently or keep it the same?
I would do different. I would focus much more on making certain that I delivered my personality in the classroom and in the studio so that translated more to the stage and to the screen later on.
Perfect. And the last question. What is the golden nugget knowledge drop you've learned from your successful career in this industry that you would like to leave with our listeners?
I mean, really, it comes down to, I would say this, managing your career. Are you pulling the reins of your career? Or are you just hoping to get lucky? Because if you're just hoping to get lucky, well, good luck to you. You have to really make sure you know how to handle your finances, because there's lots of people, they make a great paycheck from a tour and they blow it all. So being good with the money you make in this career is paramount.
Wonderful. I'm so glad that you brought up the financial side of things. I've had a couple other guests bring that up as well, and I agree. I think the financial side of this industry, I mean, it's show business. It's you got to do the business part too, and it's so important. And most of us entertainers are are right brained. We don't want to delve into that side of things, but it really does make all the difference, and really, I think, enables you to have longevity in your career.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, When I was doing Tap Dogs, there would be gentlemen in that show that I'm not kidding. Instead of doing laundry, they would go to the mall and buy a full new wardrobe, and they would do that every single week. I'm not kidding. They would fly girls, I don't say girlfriends, but girls and whatever, to city after city after city. Literally, there were people who had no expenses because all our expenses were paid, and then there was per diem on top of that. But they would spend $50,000 to $60,000 a year on themselves outside of their salary. Like they would blow their entire salary, and then they'd be like, "Oh, I hope I can do another contract," and then they get that contract, and then they'd still be broke. So they were always broke in this perfect opportunity where they had no expenses to save money. I think it happens sometimes in the cruise ship industry. Some people come off a ship and they're ready to leave the ship. Some other people come off the ship like, got to go back to the ship because I'm penniless. I spent it all, that kind of thing. So, you just have to manage your money wisely. I mean, you can save a great amount being an entertainer if you use, just a couple pennies worth of discipline.
Absolutely. And I think we are very fortunate actually in this industry as this career choice that more often than pretty much any other career I can think of, we actually have opportunities and jobs and contracts that allow us to have next to zero expenses.
Yes,
And you
very true.
can really stockpile some cash, whether that means you're going to stockpile some cash and save it up so you can give yourself a real red hot go at doing New York and make sure you can train and make sure you go to every single audition versus working 60 hours a week. If that's your goal, that's great. Or maybe it's because you just want to create some kind of a passive income through buying some condos, just
Right.
It can be anything. Having a conscious eye on the finances is, like you said, paramount.
Yeah, I mean, and if I was to give, if there's a young listener to this podcast who's maybe between the ages of 18 and 21 or 18 and 23, and they're like, I want to make it. Well, then I would tell them this. A, get out of debt. B, cut the costs out of your career, meaning is your rent too high? Live somewhere else. Are you spending too much money in transportation? Live somewhere else. Are you spending all your money on alcohol, partying, every night? Maybe just go out drinking once a month or once a week, maybe, or, just cut the cost, whatever the thing you're like, gosh, I'm consistently blowing money this way. You got to trim the fat, or you're just, you're working to work at that point. You're just working to work.
Absolutely. And I think you would also agree that when you are able to get some kind of semblance of control and order over the financial side of things, it really does, at least for me, it lifts a weight off my chest and it allows me to be more artistic.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Because your emotions are more intertwined in the art and not the stress of, oh no, how am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to pay? Yeah. How am I going to pay the rent? That kind of thing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure, man.
Well, it's time to wrap up this interview. And that means it's also time for you to give yourself a plug. So where can we find you? How do our listeners connect with you? Is there anything you want to promote?
Yes, there is. So my tap dance act with my tap dance partner, Sarah Scolo, very talented lady. We have a tap dance duet called Style and Grace, and you can find us at styleandgracetap.com, either on the World Wide Web, on Facebook, and also on Instagram and YouTube as well. So yeah, please enjoy our videos. We've got 5 really well-produced videos with vignettes that are all very, very different, that show the different aspects that Style and Grace as characters and tap dance entertainers can affect your lives and hopefully make you forget about COVID. So yeah, please enjoy styleandgracetap.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Jason. And thank you once again for being on this show and agreeing to this interview. It's been fantastic having you.
Of course. Well, thank you for having me, Dane. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today. My one call to action for you is to go to youbookeditpodcast.com and join our free email community, where we dig deep into a continually growing resource of truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help you advance your entertainment career. Don't miss an episode. We have a new guest 7 days a week. Search for You Booked It on Apple Podcast or your favorite podcast app and subscribe today. All the best to you. We'll see you tomorrow.